Unlock the power of gratitude. Transform your mindset and attract abundance. Keynotes of the speech. 1. Gratitude shifts your mental frequency from lack to abundance. 2. A thankful heart silences anxiety and invites peace. Consistent gratitude rewires the brain for positivity. What you appreciate appreciates the law of multiplication. 5. Gratitude is a spiritual weapon against darkness. 6. Gratefulness turns delays into preparation, not denial. Gratitude transforms obstacles into opportunity. The more grateful you are, the more favor you attract. 9. Practicing gratitude builds emotional resilience. Gratitude makes the invisible blessings visible. Blessings visible. Powerful introduction. There's a quiet force that has the power to transform your life without changing your circumstances. It's not a new gadget, not a life hack, and certainly not something the world markets with flashing lights. It's called gratitude. And yet most people overlook it, not realizing that within this simple choice lies a supernatural shift. You might not have control over every event in your life, but you absolutely have control over how you respond, and gratitude is your greatest weapon of transformation. If you've ever felt stuck, heavy, or trapped in a mindset of not enough, you're not alone. We live in a culture that magnifies what's missing, what you lack, what you lost, or what someone else has that you don't. That kind of thinking becomes a prison. But gratitude breaks those chains. It doesn't just change your attitude, it alters your entire perspective. It takes you from scarcity to sufficiency, from resentment to rejoicing, from confusion to clarity. Imagine this. 2 people go through the same hardship. One is crushed, the other grows stronger. What made the difference? Perspective. And gratitude is the lens that brings hidden blessings into focus. It has the power to unlock mental freedom, emotional healing, spiritual favor, and even physical health. It's not just about saying thank you, it's about living in a state of alignment with what is good, what is working, and what is yet to come. So today, we're not here to talk about gratitude as a feel-good concept. We're going deep. We're going spiritual. We're going transformational. This is about learning how to unlock the power of gratitude. Not just practice it casually, but embrace it daily until it reshapes how you see the world. Because when you change your mindset, you don't just feel better, you attract better. And that's the secret the world doesn't want you to know. Gratitude shifts your mental frequency from lack to abundance. The first and most powerful truth about gratitude is that it shifts your entire mental frequency. What does that mean? Let me explain. Every thought you think is a frequency. Every emotion you carry sends out a signal. That signal either attracts abundance or repels it. Gratitude operates on one of the highest vibrational frequencies. When you start to walk in it, genuinely, deeply, consistently, you don't just feel good, you attract good. Think of your mind as a radio station. When you're tuned into the station of complaining, comparison, or criticism, you're receiving the broadcast of lack. You begin to see what's wrong with everything. Your heart becomes anxious, your thoughts spiral downward, and your mouth starts speaking words that reinforce the negativity. But when you shift your frequency to gratitude, you start receiving the broadcast of abundance. You begin to notice what's right. You feel lighter. Your words change. Your posture changes. Your energy changes. And soon your outcomes start to change as well. Most people wait for the breakthrough before they express gratitude. But that's not how it works. You don't get the harvest and then plant the seed. Gratitude is the seed. It's the ignition switch. It's the key that unlocks doors before you even see what's behind them. You're not being delusional when you give thanks in the middle of the storm. You're being prophetic. Because gratitude is the language of faith. I've seen people remain stuck in cycles of frustration and disappointment, not because their situation is impossible, but because their perspective is imprisoned. They've trained their minds to search for what's lacking. And whatever you focus on grows. If you focus on what's missing, you'll always feel like you're not enough and you don't have enough. But if you focus on what's present, what's working, and what's good, suddenly your mindset shifts from poverty to potential. You can't attract abundance while thinking lack. It's like trying to pick up a radio signal for jazz while you're tuned into heavy metal. It just won't work. Gratitude tunes your soul into the frequency of favor. It aligns you with the principles of abundance. When you begin to thank God for the little things, you start creating space for bigger things. Why? Because appreciation is proof that you're ready. If you can't thank him for where you are, you're not prepared for where you want to go. Let's take it deeper. Neuroscience tells us that gratitude literally rewires your brain. It triggers the release of dopamine and serotonin, those feel-good chemicals that boost mood and enhance well-being. But that's not all. It also suppresses cortisol, the stress hormone. So every time you choose to be thankful, even in small doses, you are chemically training your brain to thrive instead of survive. That's how powerful this is. But it's not just psychological, it's spiritual. Heaven responds to gratitude. Angels respond to gratitude. Even the atmosphere around you shifts when you live in a spirit of thankfulness. The enemy thrives in bitterness, resentment, and entitlement, but he cannot operate in an environment of gratitude. It is spiritual warfare to lift your hands and say thank you when things don't make sense. It's an act of war to rejoice when you feel pressure all around you. Gratitude is not passive, it's aggressive in the spirit realm. Now, here's the truth most people miss. You don't need more to be grateful. You need to become more aware. Gratitude isn't about waiting for something big to happen. It's about seeing the beauty in what's already here. The breath in your lungs, the roof over your head, the people who love you, the fact that you woke up today and you still have a purpose. When you start to count your blessings begin to multiply, because whatever you magnify becomes your reality. Let me tell you something powerful. Gratitude is not the response to abundance. It is the cause of it. When you master this principle, you no longer wait for life to give you something to be thankful for. You begin to create the atmosphere that abundance needs to grow. You shift from "I'll be thankful when" to "I'm thankful now and more is on the way." That mindset is magnetic. It attracts favor. It draws provision. It opens doors. Some of the wealthiest, most fulfilled people on earth are not the ones with the most money, but the ones with the deepest gratitude. Why? Because wealth without gratitude turns to greed. Success without gratitude becomes hollow. But even small blessings, when met with gratitude, become supernatural tools in your hands. Gratitude multiplies what you carry. When you practice this daily, when you wake up each morning and say, "Thank you for life, thank you for breath, thank you for purpose, thank you that I'm not who I used to be," you start moving in rhythm with the divine. You step into a higher dimension. You stop chasing things and start attracting them. You become a magnet for miracles, a conduit for compassion, and a vessel for victory. So what does this look like practically? It means starting and ending your day with intentional thanksgiving. It means pausing in the middle of stress and saying, "Lord, I don't understand it, but I trust you and I thank you." It means writing down what you're thankful for, speaking it aloud, celebrating others, appreciating small wins, and acknowledging the growth even if it's invisible to others. Gratitude is a mindset, a posture, a lens, a discipline, a spiritual superpower. And when you truly unlock it, you'll never look at life the same way again. 2. A thankful heart silences anxiety and invites peace. There's a war going on inside most people. A silent storm of thoughts, doubts, fears, and what-ifs. It doesn't always show on their face, but it screams within. That war is called anxiety. It's subtle at first. It whispers worst-case scenarios, fills your mind with overthinking, and wraps your heart in tension. Before long, your body feels tight, your sleep is shallow, and your energy is drained. Anxiety is like a thief that doesn't just steal your peace. It robs your joy, clouds your clarity, and hijacks your hope. But there's a weapon that most people ignore. It's not just for when things are good. It's especially for when things feel uncertain, scary, or out of control. That weapon is gratitude. A thankful heart may not remove the storm immediately, but it silences the storm within. Gratitude doesn't change the situation first. It changes you in the situation. And once the heart is calm, decisions become clear, vision returns, strength rises, and the mind stops spiraling. Anxiety thrives in the unknown. It feeds off uncertainty. But gratitude reorients your soul to what is known, what is true, what is working. It pulls your focus out of the shadows of what could go wrong and plants it firmly on what has already gone right. It says, yes, things are uncertain, but I'm still breathing. I still have purpose. I still have blessings, and God has never left me. That truth alone cuts anxiety off at the root. You see, anxiety is a conversation with your fears, but gratitude is a conversation with your faith. And you can't have both going on in the same room. One will silence the other. And when you begin to open your mouth and say, thank you for this moment, thank you for what I do have, thank you for strength even when I feel weak, that sound, that declaration begins to change the atmosphere. It creates stillness in the middle of chaos. It's like a divine hush falls over the storm. Many people try to fight anxiety by forcing themselves to stop worrying. They say, don't overthink, don't be afraid, don't panic. But have you ever noticed that the more you try to stop worrying, the more your mind finds new reasons to worry? That's because nature abhors a vacuum. You can't just remove anxiety, you have to replace it. And the best replacement is thankfulness. When you're grateful, there's simply less room for fear to live. Gratitude is a form of presence, and anxiety is a symptom of disconnection from the present moment. When you're anxious, you're not truly here. You're already living in the worst-case future that hasn't even happened. You're rehearsing pain that hasn't even occurred. But when you begin to give thanks out loud, intentionally, even stubbornly, you anchor yourself back to this moment. You remember, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm breathing. I'm still held by God. And in this moment, I have peace. Let's go even deeper. Gratitude is not just emotional. It is neurological. Scientific studies show that when you practice daily gratitude, it activates areas of the brain responsible for regulating emotions, reducing stress, and improving sleep. One study from the University of California found that people who kept gratitude journals for just 3 weeks reported significantly lower levels of anxiety and higher levels of emotional well-being. In other words, your brain is literally being rewired for calm when you choose to be thankful. That's not just science, it's scripture. Philippians 4:6-7 says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds." Did you catch that? Peace is the result, but thanksgiving is the posture. When you choose gratitude, you don't just get peace. You get supernatural peace that doesn't even make sense. Peace that doesn't depend on how things look. Peace that acts like a guard around your mind, blocking fear from breaking in. That's the kind of peace we all crave. But most people are trying to buy it, chase it, or earn it when they could simply choose it. That's the gift of gratitude. It's not complicated. It doesn't require a perfect life. It just requires a willing heart, a humble heart. A heart that says, I might not have all the answers, but I still have access to peace, and I'm going to choose it. Some of the most peaceful people in the world are not the ones with the least problems. They're the ones who have trained themselves to look for blessings in the middle of problems. They say, I'm not going to let this situation define me. I will find a reason to give thanks even here. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's the kind of strength that confuses the enemy. He expected you to fall apart, but you're still standing. He expected you to crumble under pressure, but you're praising in the fire. And that praise, that thankfulness, becomes your shield. This doesn't mean you'll never feel anxious again, but it does mean anxiety no longer has to rule you. When the wave comes, you now have a life jacket. When the lie shows up, you've got a louder truth. When the fear starts whispering, you've got a shout of praise ready. That's power. That's authority. That's what happens when gratitude becomes your go-to weapon. And don't underestimate the power of small daily moments of gratitude. It could be as simple as thanking God for your morning coffee, for a kind text message, for a quiet drive, for a roof that doesn't leak. These small thank yous start building a wall of strength around your soul. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding spiritually. You stop running from hard moments and start finding grace inside of them. One of the most life-changing shifts you can make is this. Don't wait for peace to come from your surroundings. Create it with your gratitude. Because peace isn't found in the absence of pressure. It's found in the presence of perspective. And gratitude is the perspective that heals the soul. So today, if anxiety is screaming at you, answer back with thanks. If fear is breathing down your neck, lift your voice in worship. If doubt is clouding your view, open your mouth and speak what you know to be true. I've made it through before. I'm not alone, and I'm still grateful. Say it until you feel it. Declare it until your spirit catches up. You have authority over anxiety, and the weapon is in your hands. It's called gratitude. Consistent gratitude rewires the brain for positivity. Gratitude is more than a feeling. It's a mental reprogramming tool. The brain is wired to protect, which often means it's trained to detect threats, failures, dangers, and disappointments. It's a survival instinct. But if left unchecked, this wiring turns into a negativity bias. We start expecting the worst, rehearsing pain, and living in defense mode. That's why a person can receive 10 compliments in a day and still obsess over the one criticism. The brain holds on to what's negative unless you teach it otherwise. That's where gratitude comes in. Gratitude is the antidote to toxic mental cycles. It's not a once-in-a-while practice. It's a daily habit that rewires how your mind thinks, feels, and responds. When practiced consistently, gratitude carves new neurological pathways, ones that prioritize joy, hope, and optimism over fear and frustration. Every time you give thanks, even for something small, you're strengthening those positive pathways. Scientific studies have proven this truth. Researchers at the University of California and the University of Miami conducted a groundbreaking study where one group of participants was asked to write 5 things they were thankful for each week. Another group wrote 5 daily irritations. 10 weeks later, the gratitude group reported higher levels of optimism, better sleep, fewer physical symptoms, and stronger emotional resilience. What changed? Their perspective. And that change wasn't emotional. It was neurological. You see, the brain doesn't just react. It remembers patterns. When you complain constantly, your brain learns to seek out problems. When you give thanks constantly, your brain learns to find blessings even in difficulty. This is how people become hopeful, not because life is easy, but because their minds have been trained to expect light, even in the darkness. Gratitude isn't just a soft skill. It's mental discipline. It's taking control of your thoughts before they spiral. It's choosing to pause and say, even in this, there's still something good. Even here, God is still present. That shift may seem small, but over time, it becomes a transformational lens through which you begin to view everything. Some people wonder why they can't break out of cycles of depression, anxiety, or pessimism. And while there are many factors, spiritual, emotional, even chemical, one consistent, accessible remedy is the daily practice of thankfulness. The more you dwell on what's wrong, the more your world shrinks. The more you give thanks, the more your heart expands. Gratitude increases your capacity for joy. It changes the inner climate, so hope can breathe again. Let me break it down practically. When you wake up and your first thought is, "Thank you that I'm alive," you're activating a chemical response that boosts serotonin and dopamine, your body's natural feel-good transmitters. When you say thank you for today's opportunities, you're opening the mental door to optimism. And when you practice gratitude even when things go wrong, when the meeting is canceled, when the car breaks down, when the door closes, you tell your brain, there's still something to celebrate here. That's how transformation happens. Not in leaps, but in daily rewiring. Even spiritually, we are commanded to renew our minds. Gratitude is part of that renewal. Romans 12:2 reminds us not to conform to the pattern of the world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. The world runs on complaining, but we are called to run on thanksgiving. We don't follow the patterns of negativity. We break them, we speak gratitude, we live gratitude, and that rewires our minds to expect good things. Over time, you'll notice the shift. The things that once triggered you won't shake you. The people who once drained you won't distract you. The setbacks that used to paralyze you will now become setups for growth. Why? Because you've trained your brain to find meaning, beauty, and opportunity through a grateful lens. And that kind of mind is unstoppable. Gratitude won't remove all problems, but it will reframe them. And a reframed mind is a renewed life. So keep going, keep thanking, keep training your thoughts to see the best, expect the best, and believe for the best. Because gratitude isn't just something you do, it's who you become. What you appreciate appreciates. The law of multiplication. There's a divine law written into the fabric of creation, a principle that governs how things grow, increase, and multiply. And it is this: what you appreciate appreciates. In other words, what you give gratitude to doesn't just stay the same, it expands. That's not just a poetic idea, that's a spiritual reality. Gratitude is the fertilizer that multiplies your blessings, magnifies your opportunities, and matures your mindset. Let's break that down. The word appreciate has 2 meanings. First, it means to express gratitude, to say thank you for something. Second, it means to increase in value, like when a property or investment appreciates over time. Now combine those definitions, and you discover something powerful. What you value and thank begins to grow in worth in your life. When you appreciate the health you have, you're more likely to preserve it, nourish it, and see it increase. When you appreciate the relationships around you, you deepen your connections and multiply your joy. When you appreciate your job, your time, your talents, your peace, you unlock hidden dimensions in them. Gratitude is not passive, it is creative. It multiplies what you acknowledge. You might think, but I don't have much to appreciate. That's the trap. Gratitude doesn't require more, it reveals more. It takes what already exists and shines a spotlight on it, exposing just how rich you truly are. Most people are walking past treasure every day because they've never stopped long enough to thank God for what they've got. And what you don't honor, you eventually lose. Let's go to Scripture. One of the clearest examples of this law of multiplication is the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Jesus had 5 loaves and 2 fish, not nearly enough to feed the thousands gathered, but he didn't complain. He didn't panic. He didn't ask for more. He gave thanks. And in the act of giving thanks for what seemed insufficient, the insufficient became more than enough. The loaves multiplied. The fish multiplied. The fragments left over were more than what they started with. Why? Because gratitude multiplied the limited. This principle applies to every part of your life. When you complain about your current season, you curse your capacity to grow. But when you give thanks for your current season, even with its imperfections, you unlock the potential for promotion. People who don't appreciate where they are rarely move into where they want to be. Why? Because they haven't passed the test of stewardship. Gratitude is evidence that you are ready for more. Think about it. A grateful person attracts favor. Why? Because people love to bless someone who knows how to honor what they're given. Employers promote grateful employees. Friends love being around grateful people. Spouses draw closer to partners who express appreciation. Gratitude becomes a magnet for favor, opportunity, and abundance. But ingratitude, that shuts the door. It repels what could bless you. It blinds you to what you have. The children of Israel had manna from heaven, divine provision every single day. But because they complained, because they grumbled, because they didn't appreciate it, they remained stuck in the wilderness for 40 years. It wasn't a lack of provision that limited them. It was a lack of gratitude. Here's a truth most people miss. What you thank God for becomes sanctified for increase. You don't need everything to change around you. You just need to change how you see it. You might be looking at a dry field, but if you begin to water it with gratitude, you'll discover seeds already planted, seeds that just needed the rain of appreciation to grow. That job you hate? Start thanking God for it every morning. Watch how your mindset shifts and how new doors begin to open. That family member you struggle with? Start appreciating at least one thing about them each day. You'll begin to see changes in both your relationship and your response. That dream that hasn't come to pass? Thank God in advance for the outcome you don't see yet. Why? Because gratitude is faith in action. It speaks multiplication before it sees it. Even financially, this principle works. People who are generous and grateful often find themselves walking in increase, not always because they have more, but because they've learned to honor what they have. They manage their resources with thankfulness, not fear. And as a result, they walk in more than enough. Let me challenge you. What in your life have you been overlooking, underestimating, or undervaluing? Where have you allowed familiarity to rob you of appreciation? Sometimes we stop being thankful not because we're ungrateful, but because we've become too used to our blessings. We stop noticing. We start assuming. We forget that what we once prayed for is now part of our daily routine. It's time to flip the switch. Start seeing with fresh eyes. Start speaking with fresh appreciation. Make a list, not just once, but every day. Wake up and thank God for the things you've stopped noticing. Thank Him for your breath, for your mind, for your friends, for your second chances, for the things that didn't happen, for the attacks that didn't work, for the doors that didn't open, because even that was a blessing in disguise. What you appreciate appreciates. If you want to see more joy, thank Him for the joy you have. If you want to grow in peace, celebrate the moments of calm. If you're praying for promotion, honor the level you're currently on. And don't just do it when things feel good. Do it especially when they don't. That's when the multiplication becomes miraculous. Because gratitude isn't about having everything. It's about seeing everything as a gift. And when you live like that, increase is inevitable. Not because life gets easier, but because you've created a mindset that multiplies every single thing it touches. Gratitude is a spiritual weapon against darkness. Gratitude isn't just a virtue, it's a weapon. A spiritual weapon forged in heaven and feared in hell. It's not just about feeling thankful, it's about fighting with thanksgiving. Because the enemy doesn't just want to steal your stuff, he wants to steal your song. If he can rob you of your praise, he can keep you in a pit. But when you choose gratitude, even in the dark, you are engaging in spiritual warfare. Think about it. In the face of chaos, when you say, "Thank you, Lord," you are declaring to every demon, "I still trust my God." That declaration confuses the enemy because he expected fear, panic, or bitterness. But you responded with worship, and worship shifts the atmosphere. Gratitude sends the enemy fleeing because he cannot thrive in an environment of praise. Hell suffocates where thanksgiving rises. In Acts 16, Paul and Silas were beaten, chained, and thrown into a dark prison cell. But at midnight, they began to sing. They praised, they thanked, and suddenly the prison shook, chains fell, and doors opened. Why? Because gratitude releases power. It doesn't just soothe your soul, it breaks strongholds. That's not just a metaphor, that's a kingdom principle. When you give thanks, you are not ignoring the darkness, you are declaring that the darkness doesn't define you. You are putting your focus back on the light. Gratitude says, "My situation may be shaking, but my God is unshaken." And that kind of faith releases miracles. So the next time you feel spiritual heaviness, confusion, or warfare, don't just pray about it. Praise through it. Thank God in the middle of it. Gratitude isn't passive, it's prophetic. It tells the enemy, "You've already lost." Because a grateful heart is a guarded heart. A grateful heart is a victorious heart. And when you walk in thanksgiving, you walk in divine authority. 6. Gratitude shifts your focus from scarcity to sufficiency. One of the greatest lies the enemy whispers into your soul is this: you don't have enough, not enough time, not enough love, not enough money, not enough strength. And if you believe it, you'll begin to live in the fear of lack, even if you're surrounded by blessings. That's the tragedy of scarcity thinking. It blinds you from the abundance that's already in your hands. But here's the truth. Gratitude is the antidote to scarcity. It shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, from what's missing to what's present. And the moment you start counting what's right instead of what's wrong, your entire spirit begins to lift. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about realigning your vision with heaven's truth. Remember when Jesus fed the 5,000? What did he do when faced with a multitude and only 5 loaves and 2 fish? He didn't complain. He didn't panic. He didn't say it's not enough. No. He lifted his eyes, blessed the food, and gave thanks. Then the miracle of multiplication began. Gratitude came before the breakthrough. That's the pattern. When you choose to thank God before the need is met, you create space for his provision. Your gratitude is an invitation to his abundance. That's why the enemy fights your thanksgiving, because he knows a thankful heart is a magnet for heaven's supply. Many people walk around feeling empty, not because they truly lack, but because they haven't stopped to see the beauty in what they already possess. They've fallen into the trap of if only I had more money, if only I had a better relationship, if only my situation was different. But if only living leads to never enough living, you'll always be chasing and never arriving. Gratitude stops the chase. It plants your feet in the present and says, "This is enough for today." That's what Jesus meant when he taught us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." Gratitude makes you aware of your daily bread, even when it doesn't look like a feast. It redefines enough. Do you know why some of the happiest people in the world live with the least material wealth? It's not because they have less stress or easier lives. It's because they've learned the power of thanksgiving. They find joy in small things: a sunrise, a shared meal, a kind word. They live in the overflow of contentment, not because they own much, but because they see much. That's the gift of a grateful soul. The opposite of gratitude isn't just ingratitude, it's entitlement. When you feel entitled, nothing is good enough. Every blessing becomes an expectation. Every gift becomes something you deserve. And when you don't get it, you become bitter, restless, and blind. But when you live in thankfulness, everything becomes a gift. Waking up becomes a miracle. Breathing becomes a blessing. Peace becomes a treasure. In the wilderness, God provided manna from heaven daily for the Israelites. But many grumbled. They didn't want manna. They wanted meat, variety, excitement. They got used to the miracle and stopped seeing it as one. And in doing so, they prolonged their journey. Here's the warning. When you stop being thankful, you stop moving forward. Thanksgiving isn't just a virtue, it's a vehicle. It carries you from where you are to where God wants to take you. 6. Gratitude makes room for miracle. Gratitude isn't just appreciation, it's activation. Every time you thank God, you're opening space for the supernatural to step in. Why? Because gratitude is the gate. It's the key that unlocks heavenly intervention in earthly circumstances. Most people wait for the miracle before they give thanks, but the ones who walk in power are those who thank God before it happens. Jesus modeled this. At the tomb of Lazarus, he didn't cry out in desperation. He said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." And then he called a dead man out of the grave. Notice the sequence: thanks, then resurrection. Gratitude was not a response to the miracle. It was the trigger for the miracle. When you are facing lack, sickness, anxiety, or uncertainty, the most powerful thing you can say is, "Lord, thank you. I know you're working. I know you're faithful. I trust you even now." That kind of gratitude invites heaven into your situation. It shifts your energy from desperation to expectation. The enemy wants you to focus on what you lack. But when you focus on what you already have and thank God for it, you multiply what's in your hands. Just like Jesus with 5 loaves and 2 fish, he gave thanks and it fed thousands. Gratitude always multiplies. So if you're waiting for a breakthrough, don't just cry about it. Thank your way into it. Gratitude will take what's limited and place it in the hands of an unlimited God. And that's when the miraculous happens, not after you receive, but when you believe. Gratitude aligns you with divine timing. One of the most overlooked truths about gratitude is that it brings your spirit into alignment with God's timing. We often want things now. We pray, we hope, we fast forward our expectations. But divine timing is not rushed. It's strategic. And gratitude helps you trust that process instead of fighting it. When you're ungrateful, you become impatient. You start questioning, doubting, complaining. And in that state, your spirit is out of sync with the divine. But when you practice gratitude, even in seasons of delay, you're saying to God, "I trust you even when I don't understand." That's powerful. That's surrender. And surrender attracts alignment. Gratitude helps you see the purpose in the process. What looks like a setback may be a setup. What seems like a delay could be divine protection. But you'll only perceive it if your heart is thankful. Thankfulness clears your spiritual vision. It quiets the noise of comparison and despair. It keeps your feet planted in faith rather than frustration. There are things you've prayed for that are already on their way, but they haven't arrived yet, not because God said no, but because he said not yet. And if you can thank him during the not yet, then when the appointed time comes, you'll be ready to carry the blessing with maturity, not entitlement. So don't despise the waiting season. Thank your way through it. Gratitude will turn your timeline into divine alignment. And when it's time, not your time, but God's perfect time, everything will come together better than you ever imagined. Teen, gratitude turns survival into significance. There are seasons in life when you're not thriving, you're surviving. You're waking up tired, carrying burdens, questioning your worth, wondering when the breakthrough will come. But here's the mystery. Gratitude is what turns survival into significance. It doesn't erase your pain, but it gives your pain purpose. When you choose gratitude in the middle of your hardship, you declare that your identity is not defined by your circumstances. You may be in a storm, but you are not the storm. And when you give thanks despite the thunder, you become someone stronger, wiser, deeper. You begin to see that your scars tell stories of survival, and your survival becomes a testimony. Gratitude reframes your narrative. It teaches you that your broken moments can be a bridge to someone else's healing, that the dark valleys you've walked through can carry light for someone else who's still searching for a way out. This is how gratitude works. It transforms pain into purpose, setbacks into assignments, and loss into legacy. You start to understand that you didn't just make it, you were made through it. Every tear, every trial, every closed door became part of your refinement. When you thank God for what he brought you through, you're not just remembering survival, you're embracing your significance. You're realizing that even your lowest moments were infused with divine intention. Gratitude doesn't deny the pain, it redeems it. So don't just look at what you went through, look at what you became because of it, and give thanks. Because survival isn't the end of your story. It's the foundation of something far greater, a life of meaning, purpose, and undeniable power. Gratitude strengthens faith and deepens spiritual alignments. Gratitude isn't just a positive emotion, it's a spiritual discipline that opens the heavens. When you live with a thankful heart, you align yourself with the very nature of God. Scripture says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. That means the doorway to divine presence isn't performance, it's gratitude. When you begin to give thanks, even in the storm, your faith grows roots. It's easy to praise when the sun is shining, but when you can still lift your hands in worship through the darkness, heaven takes notice. You begin to declare with your life that God is good, not because your circumstances are easy, but because he is faithful regardless of them. Gratitude reminds you of what God has already done. It builds an altar in your memory. It forces you to look back and say, he did it before, he'll do it again. That's how faith is multiplied, not just by praying harder, but by remembering deeper. And in that posture of thankfulness, you begin to hear clearer, walk bolder, and trust longer. Your spirit becomes sensitive to divine whispers because your heart is tuned to grace. Gratitude silences the noise of fear, anxiety, and doubt. It replaces panic with peace and confusion with clarity. This is where the shift happens from begging God to trusting him, from striving to surrendering. Gratitude makes room for miracles, not because God was ever absent, but because your awareness of him becomes stronger than your awareness of the problem. So if you feel far from God, begin with gratitude. Let your thanks be the bridge back to alignment. The more grateful you are, the more deeply your spirit will flow with divine purpose, divine power, and divine peace. 10. Gratitude turns waiting into preparation. In every season of waiting, whether for healing, breakthrough, clarity, or opportunity, there lies a hidden invitation to wait with gratitude. Most people see waiting as passive, even painful. But gratitude transforms waiting into a time of divine preparation. It shifts your focus from what hasn't happened yet to what is already happening beneath the surface. Gratitude says, even though I can't see it yet, I believe something good is growing. Instead of asking, when will it come? You begin declaring, thank you that it's already on the way. That single shift rewires your emotional state, your expectations, and your spiritual atmosphere. The enemy loves to use waiting seasons to plant doubt, but gratitude shuts that down. Every thank you whispered in the delay becomes a seed of preparation, and those seeds are powerful. They cultivate patience, sharpen vision, and fortify your character for what's coming next. Think of the caterpillar in the cocoon. The outside looks still, silent, stuck, but inside, transformation. Waiting seasons are like that. The gratitude you practice inside them doesn't speed up the clock, but it prepares you to fly when the time is right. Gratitude also protects your heart from bitterness. When you can celebrate while waiting, you're not just holding on, you're rising up. You're telling your soul, we may not be there yet, but we're not empty, we're becoming. So whatever you're waiting for, don't waste the season. Don't let anxiety rob the sacred process. Choose gratitude as your daily declaration. Let it shape you, strengthen you, and prepare you. Because when the door finally opens, it won't just be about what you receive. It'll be about who you became while waiting in thanksgiving. Conclusions. We began this journey by daring to believe in the underestimated force of gratitude, not just as a polite response, but as a powerful spiritual principle that reshapes how we think, feel, act, and attract. What we've discovered is that gratitude isn't weak, it's warfare. It is not passive, it is prophetic. And it is not a feeling, it is a choice that transforms every aspect of your life from the inside out. Gratitude is the lens that reveals what's right when everything seems wrong. It's the key that unlocks abundance in seasons of lack. It's the voice that silences negativity. And it's the compass that realigns you when life spins off course. When you walk in gratitude, you walk in alignment with a greater rhythm, a divine rhythm. You begin to attract peace, opportunity, healing, provision, and clarity. Not because the world around you changed, but because you changed from within. We've talked about how gratitude renews your mind, guards your heart, multiplies your blessings, heals your past, and prepares you for your future. We've seen how it turns comparison into celebration, pressure into peace, and waiting into purpose. Every principle we've uncovered points to one eternal truth, that gratitude is more than a practice, it's a gateway. And once you step through it, everything begins to shift. If you apply even one of these principles, not just once, but daily, you will feel it. The heaviness will start to lift. The chaos will start to still. Your energy will rise. Your joy will return. And suddenly, you'll look around and realize nothing around you changed. You changed. That's the power of gratitude. So I challenge you, don't just feel grateful, live grateful. Make it your language, your default, your defense, your identity. Make gratitude your revolution. Because when you do, you'll no longer chase abundance. Abundance will begin chasing you. Thank you for investing your time, your mind, and your heart into this message. It's not easy to pause and reflect in a world that constantly demands more. But by doing so, you've taken a step that most overlook. You've chosen transformation over distraction. My hope is that this message doesn't just stay in your notes, but sinks deep into your soul. That every word, every principle, every revelation begins to echo through your decisions, your perspective, your relationships, and your destiny. Thank you for believing that change is possible, that mindset matters, and that gratitude can unlock doors that effort alone cannot. You are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are being prepared for something greater than you imagine. And it all starts with a grateful heart. So walk forward today, eyes open, hands lifted, heart full. Gratitude is your foundation. Abundance is your portion, and your transformation has already begun. Thank you, and keep rising.